I'm Keystone Agronomist Troy Jenkins. Today I'll be discussing problematic late-season soybean insects. So let's get started. The first one I want to talk about is Japanese beetle. Japanese beetles are heavy defoliators. They can actually eat so hard on the leaf tissue on the trifoliates that they can skeletonize the leaves. This reduces the amount of photosynthesis the leaves can perform, and a lack of sugar can be transformed to the flowers and to the pods, and we can have both flower and pod abortion. On beans that remain on the plant, we can have a lack of photosynthate or sugars get to the pod, which can reduce grain fill and seed weight, which reduces yield. Another insect we need to be mindful of is spider mite. We see spider mite in extremely hot, dry years. We see it along dirt roads, along fence rows and woods and things like that. When we have a canopy, a soybean canopy with a lot of humidity and a lot of moisture, we have a beneficial fungi that can actually keep spider mite populations in check. And as we get hot and dry, this moisture level drops and our fungi level drops, and we have an explosion of spider mites. They have a piercing, sucking mouth part that can actually pierce through the surface of the leaf and actually blow up the cell membranes and cause cell membrane and cell death, which means that the tissue dies, and eventually we can have infestation so heavy that the actual plants might die from spider mite infestation. Let's talk about another problem insect, and that's grasshoppers. Grasshoppers have come from egg masses that turn into the nymphs, which are the young version of the adult grasshopper. Really the only difference is they have a smaller body size and they don't have developed wings, but as they grow and develop, they consume more and more tissue. They'll consume a lot of tissue on the outer margins of the leaves, and they'll eat between the veins of the soybean plant. They're also pod feeders. They'll eat large chunks of tissue out of the soybean pod and can actually eat so aggressively that they'll eat the bean right out of the pod. Bean leaf beetle is another major insect of concern. We see this come in early on, and it can actually transmit early on after germination and early growth bean pod mottle virus. Okay, but it can also come in late in the reproductive phases, and it can feed and cause defoliation and, of course, reduce photosynthesis. But it also has the ability to feed on pods and cause a scraping effect, which leaves this transparency film on the pod that allows for diseases to enter in and cause malformation of the seed and reduce seed quality. The last insect I want to touch on is stink bug. Stink bugs are also come from egg masses that develop and create miniature versions or smaller versions of the adult form. They're very colorful. They've got a lot of black and red and orange and yellow colors in them. But as they develop, they'll turn into that green color, and they'll produce that piercing, sucking mouth part that comes in and invades the soybean pod and will suck out that succulent juice, reducing the amount of sugars available for grain fill and development. They'll also transmit a lot of diseases that can cause malformation and shrunken and poor quality seed. So let's talk about scouting. We really ought to scout starting at R1 through R7, and we ought to be in our soybean fields a number of times. We can do a couple things. We can either just walk in and visually observe what's going on in the field, or we can use one of these, basically a sweep net. Come in and sweep a number of times according to university recommendations, and then they've established threshold levels that they publish in their university publications that tell us where we're at with thresholds and when we should use insecticides. For more information on scouting for insects and insecticide applications and products to be used, contact your Keystone Agronomy location.